Hello, I am Rafael Malpica Padilla, Executive Director for the Global Mission Unit at the Churchwide offices. Recently, in our Churchwide Assembly, the Assembly took the decision to become a Sanctuary Church. That decision has generated a lot of interest within members of our church and people that had been following our assembly. Sanctuary is a new word for us that is used to describe ways of acting in relating to people that has come to our country. But when we look at this word sanctuary, it is not a new word. It is something that is part of our Christian tradition. Members of our Amparo team will share with you some ideas about what sanctuary means and will be able to answer some of the questions that you have been asking of us. Why do I say that sanctuary is not a new word? One of the most used portions of the Bible is Psalm 23. Most of us have memorized that piece of scripture. And the psalm talks to us about God as the good shepherd, and God as a gracious host. God's graciousness is abundant. God's hospitality is radical, so radical that the psalmist writes, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." When hospitality was extended, people respected that hospitality, that protection that was given to the stranger, to the passerby. So the Old Testament tradition is very clear about what we as followers of God need to do with the strangers in our midst. In the New Testament, we are warned to show love to one another because we don't know if we will be hosting angels without knowing. At the heart of this radical hospitality is the concern for the neighbor, especially the neighbor in need. And that is a very good descriptor of who we are as Christians of the Lutheran tradition. Neighbor love, our concern for those that are vulnerable. So sanctuary, protection, hospitality is about embracing those in our midst that need to receive the gracious love of God that is embodied in accompanying people to court hearings, that is embodied in offering assistance with legal processes. It means sheltering those that are vulnerable. So I hope that you will be able to engage us in conversation about this important step that our church has taken to live the radical hospitality that we have received from God in the person of Jesus Christ.
Hi, my name is Mary Campbell. I'm the Program Director of Amparo, the ELCA's strategy to accompany migrant minors with protection, advocacy, representation, and opportunities.
Hi, I'm David Wunsch, and I'm part of the Amparo team here in the Global Mission Unit of the Churchwide offices of the ELCA. We've had a lot of questions coming our way recently, and one of these is, what does it mean for the ELCA to become a sanctuary denomination? In its simplest form, being a sanctuary denomination means that the ELCA is publicly declaring that walking alongside immigrants and refugees is a matter of faith. Last week at our ELCA Churchwide Assembly, which is the highest legislative authority of our church, we declared that what we preach on Sunday about the importance of welcoming our neighbor is something that we really need to be living out in our words, in our actions, and our commitments when Monday morning rolls around.
Another question that we've heard is, why now? First of all, I'd like to say that why now really responds to the context that we're living. Our communities are fearful. There are so many changes in migration policy that have led people to even fear going to church on Sundays. We've had bishops tell us that ELCA members have seen ICE vehicles outside of their congregations down the block, and they're afraid to even go to church. We know that school children are afraid when they go to school in the morning that when they come back in the afternoon, they are not going to see their parents there. And that actually happened last week to many, many children in Mississippi. But this call really isn't a new call. In 2016, the Oregon Synod became the first sanctuary synod in the ELCA, and as part of their resolution, they memorialized the Churchwide Assembly to consider taking an action to become a sanctuary denomination. That action was referred by the Churchwide Assembly in 2016 to the Church Council. Then, in 2019, as a result of the fact that we are now 5 sanctuary synods in the ELCA, one of them, the Metropolitan New York Synod, also passed a memorial to ask the Churchwide organization to become a sanctuary denomination. And that was adopted by our voting members last week on August 7th.
It sure was. And some people are asking, does this mean that the church is getting involved in political matters? This is not about politics. This is about faith. Faith that we receive from God in baptism. When we're baptized, we enter into a covenantal relationship with Jesus Christ, and this means that we are called to go out and speak on behalf of our neighbor as a matter of faith. Martin Luther, the founder of our tradition, expressly connected baptismal identity with speaking on behalf of our neighbor. It's not something we only do as individuals, but we do this as a whole church. The ELCA for decades has spoken out against the illegal detention of immigrant families and children. More recently, as we all know from what we see on TV all the time, we are against the illegal separation of children from families. Our immigration system is broken and needs to be fixed urgently. We know that a big piece of that is having a pathway to citizenship for friends and neighbors in our community who are immigrants, but have still not yet been able to become citizens of our country. That needs to be in place. At the same time, we have to look at what are the factors, what are the push factors in countries around the world that are causing people to migrate. What are those conditions? And addressing those conditions, and at the same time recognizing that there are times when violence and economic deprivation are at work to such a degree that people need to be able to flee. And when they flee to someplace, to a safe haven, their human rights and their human dignity needs to be protected.
So what does this mean to my congregation? We've heard that question many times over the last 10 days. Yeah. What I would say, first of all, is that the ELCA Amparo strategy was adopted as a result of all of the migrant children and families that began to come as early as 2011 to our borders, looking for safety and security in our country. So it's not something very new at all. And this strategy has engaged many of our congregations. At this moment in time, we have 151 welcoming and sanctuary congregations, many of whom show this sign on their front lawn. No matter where you're from or whom you love, we're glad you are our neighbor. This has meant for those congregations the ability to walk with migrants in their community. They have been able to accompany them to ICE check-ins. They have been able to do all kinds of things, including Know Your Rights presentations, connecting people with legal representation, and even some are hosting people in their congregations. Another question that we received was, by becoming a sanctuary denomination, are we calling upon members and congregations to do illegal actions? Absolutely not. There is a misunderstanding that sanctuary means illegal conduct, and that is not correct. Most actions undertaken by congregations, opening their doors to all, providing services to migrants, advocating for justice, and sponsoring presentations are entirely legal. We encourage all sanctuary hosting congregations to get legal representation, to be clear on what actions they can take without violating the laws, and conversely, which actions would violate the laws. The strategy, ELCA Amparo strategy through Sanctuary, expands to all members of our community and welcomes all members to engage in welcoming the people that are in their communities together. Right now, we have 151 welcoming and sanctuary congregations that commit to work on migration issues and welcome people in their communities. The church has 5 sanctuary synods, and they are all engaged in providing a structure to welcome people in their synod communities. In total, we have 41 synods that have something happening, either a welcoming congregation or a group of welcoming congregations, or we have or actually working on immigration task forces as well. In addition to that, through the Guardian Angel programs, people are going to court. Church people are going to court to be the physical presence of the church in the courtroom. 9 programs have been started already throughout the cities in the ELCA, and 2 more are probably going to be beginning very soon.
And in Central America, we're also at work. There we are working with faith-based organizations as well as nonprofits to alleviate the conditions that are pushing people, that are causing people to migrate. Also, we're working in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador with returned migrants, helping them to integrate back into their communities, providing opportunities and providing resources that will give them a firm place to be so they won't need to migrate in the future. We're also supporting migrants in Mexico and making sure that the protections that they need are in place. This work's going to continue, both what Mary described in terms of what's happening here in the United States, as well as in the countries of origin in Central America, and the country of transit, which is Mexico. This work is surely going to deepen and extend as we, through the Amparo Initiative, live into what it means for the ELCA to be a sanctuary denomination. To learn more about this, go to the ELCA Amparo webpage, and there are a number of resources, and some of the same information in a more detailed form can be found there.